Hello and welcome back to another Craig and Dave Unscripted. So we had a Karen Morris on last week from Stroud High talking about girls in computing. We've got another teacher. This one's particularly close to my heart and we'll probably get on to why in a minute. Without further ado, let's bring him on. This is Johnny Palmer. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Right, so I guess before we do anything else, for those who have no idea who you are, because you're a man with like so many hats, it's unbelievable. Just tell people briefly who are you?
Okay, so first of all, delighted to be here. Thanks, Craig and Dave, for inviting me along. So, like in my part of the world, I suppose quite a lot of people know who I am. But as we're probably going out to a global audience here, fellas, I'll just sort of give a bit of chit chat on who I am and what I do. So, like I say, my name's John Palmer. I'm from the Chase in Malvern. We're a large secondary 11 to 18 academy. I've been there teaching computing, computer science, business, ICT, etc., for 20 years. Dear old Craig, you did your training with us back in, I can't remember what year it was, 2005?
15 years ago now, yeah.
Yeah,
My
gosh, long time ago.
School. That was it.
So what do I do? Well, obviously teach kids. That's the most important thing. In recent years, I've done a lot more like reaching out to schools, trying to help them improve their computing teaching. So I run a CAS community, and I'm also hub lead for one of the 34 computing hubs that have popped up all around England to support teachers with their computing teaching. There you go.
That's part of the whole NCCE work, isn't it? We had Laura on a couple of months ago talking about that's part of the national centre work, isn't it? Those hubs.
Yeah, very, very much so. So, I mean, I've always been, heavily involved in, computing education and, reaching out, getting people excited about it. Now we're part of this wonderful consortium, British Computer Society, BCS, Raspberry Pi Foundation, and STEM Learning, all working together to really make a difference for teachers in schools.
Yeah, you are. That's you're very. What's the word I was going to say? Oh, damn, I can't think of it now. You're very humble when you say the things you do. You've probably more for computing, especially in our counties, than anyone else I can think of. The number of things you put on. Yet you're still very down to earth and teach. So
crikey. So I used to work for the local authority, not full time. I just did a part-time job for them, and I was working with some absolutely lovely people. And the thing that I found really interesting was that they were going out and talking to teachers about how to teach better, yet they didn't work in a school and they didn't do any teaching. So, I don't think you can do one without the other. But for me to have any sort of, status going into a school, talking to them, then, I've got to be doing the job myself, haven't I, Craig?
Yeah, it's interesting. I can take a slight sidebar here, but it's one of the big reasons Dave and I ended up sort of starting this company in the first place. We were buying, teachers are tired. They don't want to spend all their summer and Easter generating resources. And you know what it's like. Our subject was changing so fast, even before computer science. We're constantly making stuff. And we would buy stuff and I'd go, right, I've spent some money. Brilliant. And then you unpack it and look at it and go, with the greatest respect, I look at the Ford of the guy in here. When was the last time he taught year 9 on a Friday afternoon in a comprehensive school? And it was like, you can't constantly make your own resources. And I hope people appreciate that Dave and I are teachers. I mean, yep, we only teach part-time now, but we still teach. We use the stuff. If it's good enough for us, it should be good enough for you. We teach with the stuff we sell. And I think it makes a difference.
I think it's really important that, you guys are teachers. And I mean, I'm delighted, to be honest, that you're teaching a little bit less. I'm sure the children of Stroud aren't. They probably want you teaching a little bit more. But I think finding the right balance between sort of being in school and doing what you do, and you do a terrific job. I've been saying it for years. I'm a big fan of what you guys do and the quality of the resources that you produce. It's really quite difficult in many cases, like teaching from other people's PowerPoints. But you guys make it so easy to do that. And, all the other little extras that you chuck in, you've saved me hours, so thank you very much. And, thanks for all the nice comments earlier as well. But, it's important that we get this stuff right, isn't it? Because computing is such an important subject. And, let's be honest, in a lot of schools, it's just not being taught well enough at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, I'm big on the pedagogy, really. And so for me, yes, it's about saving teachers time and not reinventing the wheel and being able to, get in some good resources that are actually being used on the ground by other teachers. That's really important.
Yeah, we use them.
But also, we've got to be sort of at the forefront and pushing forward of the pedagogical theory as well. And now that we're part-time, it gives us a little bit more time to investigate in the research and the thinking as well, because taking our teaching forward and not always teaching exactly the same way and pushing the envelope and trying new ideas is really important to me, so that our classrooms are always getting the best outcomes for the students and always inspiring that next generation into computer science as well. So that's the aspect that I'm also very
This
keen
one's
on.
Quite good, but I was really hoping that you chaps would be in it.
So were we.
Well, do you know? Here we are. Well, do you know what? I this is a slight tangent to what we were going to be talking about, but I'm genuinely surprised. Okay, that this Big Book of Computer Pedagogy, it is fantastic, and it's free, by the way. So all the teachers out there, go and get yourself a copy.
Go get one.
PDF, no problem at all. Online, completely free. And it talks a lot about the pedagogy of teaching programming, the pedagogy of classroom teaching, and all sorts of great ideas in there. But what really, really surprised me is that Craig and Dave are not in here. And I don't know why, because we've been giving hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos for teaching flipped classroom and other ways, completely free to the community, as well as a lot of other stuff as well. And I'm just amazed, actually, that whoever the authors are of this, there are other people out there that are doing good things. And I could mention other names, Paul Long, Alan O'Donoghue, Rob Heathcote. There are lots of people out there that are doing some really good things, and they're not getting a mention. I think that's a real shame. And I do think that Raspberry Pi do need to expand their world a little bit there. And just
as part of
it's not like they don't know
having an interest
for Raspberry Pi. We're involved in the NCCE initiative, so why aren't they reaching out to us?
I think it's all about you got to be in it to win it, haven't you, chaps? I haven't seen you in any sort of other magazines, although you might have been. I might just not have seen them. And it's all just getting on the radar of whoever's doing the editing, isn't it? And,
it is.
And if you can write a few things and you can send them in, well, there you go. Maybe that's something for next month's issue. We'll see something from Craig and Dave in it.
They do say in here, if you want to write an article, then please get in touch and write us an article. Well, I did get in touch. I did write an article, and I never heard back.
Yeah, but you were late with your deadline, which your students would be. Well, you're not. Are you sure?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I wrote to Milesbury and I said, would you like me to write an article? He said, yeah, that's great. He sent me the framework of how it all needed to be structured and everything. I filled it in. I sent it off. Never heard back.
Oh. Hey, look, mate, there's always next time. There really is always next time. I do look forward to seeing you guys in it. I mean, I'll be nudging myself, exerting any sort of minor political influence I might have to make sure that you're in it. All right.
We have been mentioned in it in the past.
We have been mentioned.
Okay, so I've got all the back issues, and we are mentioned in there from time to time, but just not in the big book. Which it is what it is. We know that we make a difference to thousands and thousands of students. So
that's it. Guys.
No, what matters is that we make a difference to the students, and we know we do that because we get emails every day. We've had at least 2 today that have said thank you so much for your resources.
One of my students has got one of your T-shirts. he turned up for the first lesson in this like Craig and Dave T-shirt with the logo on the back, and I went, you do know Craig used to work here, don't you? He was like, no, really? I said, yeah, you go, come to my office. I'll show you his old ID badge. I got your old ID badge up on the wall. He went, whoa, really? Yeah, really.
Crazy. Every time we have a new year 12 class, a couple of them turn up in hoodies. I think 2 in our new year 12 class have got hoodies and they wear them. And I'm like, you're not getting any special treatment because you bought merch off the store. Still expect you're working by the deadline. Right. I knew this was going to happen with the Unscripted with you, John. We've gone completely off point. We haven't even asked any of our questions. So there are a few things we want to, because we want people to hear what you have to say about these. You are, as you've alluded to, very experienced teacher, been teaching for many years, but also you're keen and you're always pushing the envelope and looking to help. So we've got a few questions here. Right, here's the first one. So you teach GCSE and A level. We've been doing it for years. What are the attributes of a successful student? I mean, we mean computer science student, but obviously this is going to apply to anyone. In your mind, what are those key attributes that make a student really successful at GCSE and A level?
Okay, so this is an interesting sort of concept, because what we're trying to do at our place is we're really trying to sort of widen participation. So about a third of our students do computer science at GCSE.
That's amazing.
We're really keen to encourage that. The Chase as a school is really keen to encourage it. You look at where we're located, it's of major importance to the local community and to, the local economy. And what I really want is I just want people who have got even a slight interest in the subject, and who are vaguely literate and vaguely numerate, and just are not afraid to be in an environment where maybe things don't work perfectly first time and they have to fix them. And it's the kids who are expect everything to fly along and work perfectly, and that's not how life is it? I suppose really what I'm saying is we're after people who are interested in doing something that's maybe a little bit different to all their other subjects, something that's very practical, and something that gives them an opportunity to do something new and investigate things that maybe they hadn't thought of before. And
so I've got a question for you, John. I got a question along these lines. So just to recap for a second, you said that you've got about a third of your cohort doing computer science. Now, I think that's unusual. I don't think many schools are in that position. Now, that must mean that you're taking a very wide range, because it's a comprehensive school. So you're taking a very wide range of students onto that course, a third of your entire year group cohort.
Correct.
Now, I know that there'll be lots of teachers watching this now saying you must have entry criteria. They must be on course to get, an 8 in maths or something like that, or, a 7 in science. Now, how is it that you are able to take almost any student and make them sort of relatively successful, and other schools either don't or can't, and they say, oh no, it's computer science is only for the high ability?
Absolute rubbish. It frustrates me beyond words that some centres will only let you sort of do computer science if you're on target for a G7 in your maths and your physics. It's completely irrelevant in my eyes. It's a subject graded 9 to 1. It's in theory, it's a subject that anyone should be able to take and anyone should be able to enjoy. What we want to do is we just want to give people the correct information, advice and guidance, so that they're choosing it because it's right for them and because they're interested in it. And if they're interested in it, then they should be able to study it. We certainly don't we don't put any sort of limits on like entry. I think what it is, I mean, so many schools are squeezing their Key Stage 3 curriculum to the point where it's like virtually meaningless. And that's completely wrong. Every school should have a minimum of like 1 unit a week, right the way through Key Stage 3, to make sure that they're fully delivering the whole computing curriculum. And by that, I mean IT, media, and computer science, not just one of them. And by doing that, you give them the breadth of like opportunity, so that at the end they can go, well, actually, I quite enjoyed writing a bit of HTML. I quite enjoyed, you know, all the nuts and bolts and the sort of widgets and the whatnots. And yeah, maybe computer science is for me.
Yeah, you both know what I'm going to talking about here. It frustrates me no end, and it comes around on the Facebook forums every few months. How many hours of curriculum time do you get at Key Stage 3? And it varies. Yeah, you know, we have 2 lessons a week. That's lovely. To the person who's like, oh, well, we do it in a carousel along with these 2 other subjects. We get 9 weeks in year 7 and 10 weeks in year. Oh, and we only do a 2-year Key Stage 3. And how are you going to inspire them to want to know enough about your subject on that? I think 1 period a week minimum for year 7 should really be.
Well, my students, Craig, my son, my youngest son, he's just started in year 7, and I've had to look at his timetable, and he doesn't have computer science on there at all, right? And so I've said to him, well, do you ever go into a computer room, just to sort of try and get him to understand, you know, what I'm talking about here? And he's like, oh, not often. And I said, right, okay, well, do you not do any computer science? And he said, well, no, what we've got is this subject called STEM. And I said, oh yeah, okay, tell me about STEM. He said, well, we have 1 lesson a fortnight. That's all it is. 1 lesson a fortnight where we do sort of science, technology, engineering, and it might involve using the computer, but, you know, not a lot. And I don't know now as a parent whether actually I should go into that school and say, look, I've been an assistant head, and, you know, I understand curriculum models and everything. Perhaps you'd like to justify to me why you are not allowing these students to study computer science. And I'll tell, if they were truthful, I'll tell you what they tell me.
Mate, I'd want my money back. You know, if my kids went to that school, I wouldn't be happy at all. Like,
no, I'm not happy. But I don't know whether I should be the grumpy parent. But I, if they were truthful, I think what they would say is, we can't recruit computer science teachers. And I know that because their staff turnover has been so high, and they've lost so many staff over the years, that actually there aren't people that can teach computer science. So that's why they're not offering it.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? And you know, I've had a fair few conversations with you know, multi-academy trusts about how they go about teacher like recruitment and retention. And yeah, there are only so many like pennies to like put in the bottle, aren't there? And if you've got one, then what you really want to do is you want to hold on to them. And you're there. You've got, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a computing teacher, then you want to be saying, well, what do I need to do in order to bring this computing teacher up and, like, you know, retain them? I'm not entirely convinced every school's got that message.
No,
you know,
not
loud
at all.
And clear
And I think it needs to be driven from the government down. What I think is really strange is that if you go and become a trainee teacher and you're in a shortage subject, then they will encourage you into those subjects with bursaries and grants and goodness knows what. Yet the moment you become sort of an NQT and then sort of a regular teacher, you're now subjected to exactly the same as everybody else. Like, you don't, you know, your skill set is now, you know, no better than anything else. And my point is, computer science teachers are so rare. You know, those with a degree in the subject are so rare. You surely it doesn't make sense to just treat them exactly the same as another type of teacher who, with the greatest respect, are 2 a penny. I mean, why are these schools not investing? I know, I like to be controversial. Why are these schools not investing in their computer science teachers? Why don't they hold them up as people that they need to keep and need to move forward. We know that there's a 13.8 billion deficit in computer science as a minimum in this country. Why is there not the investment there?
I think I've got to say, Dave, I really do think that there is. I mean, with the National Centre, the amount of resource that the DFE have put into schools so that they can start addressing this, it's massive. I mean, we're sort of reaching out to schools and looking at sort of bringing ICT teachers as they were, giving them a new skill set, and right now you're a computing teacher, and right now, what do you need next? Do you need A-level training? Do you need support in physical computing? There's an absolute whole range of stuff out there for people. I think the problem possibly is, Dave, that there's not enough time always for people to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that there are. But I look around in my part of the world, and I could highlight, a large number of teachers that have taken advantage of every opportunity that's been given to them, and now they're in a different place.
I think you're right.
Not everyone's got that sort of discipline to engage in a program like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's unfair of me actually to just tar everyone and every school with the same brush. I think you're absolutely right. I think though there is a digital divide in teaching. I think there are schools that are moving staff forward, and they contain staff that want to move themselves forward, even if they're not specialists. And then there seem to be schools that are just happy for it to kind of wither on the vine and disappear. And so who is accountable here, John? Is it the head teachers? If it's not the Department for Education, because you put a good case for defending the Department for Education. Okay?
Thank you.
They have thrown money at it. You're absolutely right.
They do go towards paying my wages. So all right. So all right. Historically, having worked with schools for quite a while, we normally find that schools fall in one of three categories, and it's always been like this. You've got a third of schools, and that third of schools are, the schools that probably you work in, I work in, that invest in the subject, know what they're doing, and, great results, lots of kids doing it, everyone's happy, right? Then you've got a third of schools that are not quite there, but they're looking at that group of schools that are a little bit higher, and they're really trying to be like that. And then, unfortunately, you've got a third, you just haven't got a clue what they're doing or how their decision making's working. And, subjects getting squeezed, can't hold on to staff, this, that, and the other. And, I think it is a very difficult world for
But they're not all failing schools. I'll let Craig have a word in a minute, but I'm sort of, my passion's taken over here. But they're not failing schools, okay? The school my son goes to is a good school with good outcomes, good facilities. It is a great
I think
school.
I can guess which one it is. I won't name it.
No, don't name anybody, but it's a great school. But
it is.
But and they would be, kind of well known perhaps for other subjects. Maybe they're doing great things in other subjects, but computer science, it's like the leadership is excellent, but not when it's pointed at computer science. And that's the bit I don't really understand.
I think really what we need is, we do need someone to sort of come in and start saying, at a higher level that, students are entitled to this. It is in the national curriculum.
Yeah.
And where is their entitlement? What are you doing to, make sure that they can do what the national curriculum says that they should be able to do? And,
that's Ofsted's role, isn't it?
I'd like to think so, but I don't know. I'm not even sure Ofsted have anyone like specifically tasked with computing. Do they? Now, is it Dave Bell who's gone, hasn't he?
I think they do, because I hear of schools that have had a subject inspection for computer science, but it doesn't seem to be very high on the agenda, given how high on the agenda it is for the Department of Education itself. And that's what I'm saying.
You know, computing's a vital subject for the economy. It's a vital subject for our students. Everyone should be able to have the opportunity to study it. And if that's not the case, then it's not right, is it? It's not right. But I don't think we're going to be able to solve that in the next couple of minutes of chat, Dave.
So, no, we're not. And this is the final thing I'll say on this. I just think there's a mismatch between the Department of Education and their priorities, for computer science, Ofsted and their priorities for inspection, and head teachers and their priorities for their school, their learners, and their outcomes. And I think there's a mismatch between those three things, unfortunately.
Cool. So just to remind everyone, the question we asked was, what are the attributes of a successful student? But I mean, this is all good stuff. But
being in a school with the opportunity to study the subject.
Absolutely. I do want to pick up on something you said, though, which was really interesting, because obviously I knew what Dave was going to come back with. Like, oh, so you don't set levels and expectations. You got to get a 7 and 8. And you were like, no, absolute rubbish. Don't do that. You know, it's not about pure academic ability. It's about a passion or an interest or an inkling, and you tap into that. And we must have had the same messages over a couple of these episodes. We had our developer who works for CraignDave, Mark, on an episode last week or the week before, and we asked him, you know, you've been a programmer in industry, big companies, last 25 years. What is it you're after from graduates? Presumably it's the best programmers. Absolutely not. I'm after problem solving. I'm after passion. I'm after interest. The coding comes later. And then right at the other end of the scale, I don't know if you saw it, we had Jack Rafferty, 15 or 16, I think a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
and he
14.
14, sorry, yeah. And he got through to the BAFTA Young Game Designer of the Year, and we had him on, and we were saying, so what is it about, you know, what makes you a good programmer? And he says, well, I don't give up, and I love learning it. And and it wasn't about pure coding skills, you know, and you just said exactly the same thing. That's what it is, isn't it? So if you're out there as a teacher, with the greatest respect, and it's like, you know, you've got to have a 7, it's a harder subject. You kind of need to just mentally shift that mindset. It really isn't about that.
We just, you know, we need to be inclusive, don't we? Because so many students just bring so many things, you know, to your lessons, and, you know, all right, just because they're not going to get a G7 doesn't mean that they can't be getting an awful lot out of the subject, and you know, really learning a lot that's going to be of sort of value in them, or value for them, like in later life. You know, they might not go on and be a you know, cybersecurity analyst for like GCHQ. Well, they might be. A lot of my students, that's what they go on and do. They might go off and become an electrician, but, you know, nevertheless, hopefully the sort of skills that we've sort of taught them in, you know, in terms of resilience, and in terms of sort of, you know, making sure that things get right in the end, and they might not be right the first time you do them. That's all still positive, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you've provided me with sorry, Dave, go on.
No, I was just literally going to summarize that. I think it's not about their projected attainment. It's about their projected attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you've provided me with a nice segue, John, onto my next 2 questions, which I'm going to bolt together, because, you know, we know you have a very successful computer science curriculum at your school, right through from GCSE all the way up to A level. And you mentioned just then about, you know, past students going on and taking up a apprenticeship and work in industry. So I kind of want to tie these 2 together, because, you know, you'll have knowledge and experience of this, which is, you know, if there's keen computer science students out there at A level, or maybe even just in GCSE now, any advice, hints, or tips on routes into apprenticeships? How important is it to get work experience and link with industry? And all tied into that, do you have any advice or opinions for like A level students keen? You know, should you be building up a portfolio of work? All those kind of tips to those keen A level students. Yeah, I want to get that apprenticeship at XYZ. You know, what sort of things are you advising your students, the ones that are going out there and like, that's what I want to do? John's top tips.
Yeah, okay. So right on the one side of this coin, you see, I've got a computer science degree from a Russell Group university, and I'm a chartered IT professional. And, you know, I could be very, very snobby, couldn't I, about apprenticeships and go, well,
sure.
oh, mate, if you're going to go and do an apprenticeship, then, you know,
You could
oh,
be.
mate, you'll be
I'll end
making
the
the tea
broadcast
for
on
3
you.
years. You know, and actually, I've got to say, nothing in my experience could be further from the truth. And in the last 5 years, I've got to say, I've undertaken quite a change in mindset over higher apprenticeships, because I think the way that they've developed now really meets the needs of a large group of students. There's always going to be the student that should go to university, and if they're going to university, I'd actually suggest that maybe you don't just do computer science. Maybe you go and do computer science and philosophy, or computer science and mathematics, or computer science and, you know, management studies, or, you know, maybe blend it up a little bit so it gives you a bit more exposure to like other disciplines.
Computer science and geography, Craig.
What a great idea.
That was my degree.
You know, I mean, now, you laugh about that, but it's all about geoinformatics, isn't it? You've brought those two together. What about bioinformatics? Why not go and do computer science and biology? And there's all this stuff that's sort of existing on the cusp of both disciplines. Anyway, I'm going off at a tangent. Going to university, it's still a really good thing to do, but it's not everything, not at all.
Sure.
So what I'm noticing is that some of my best students are now choosing to go off and do higher apprenticeships with. So, for example, next door to us in Malvern, there's a great big company called Kinetic that have links with all sorts of people, all sorts of government agencies, do really cool work. They've got a massive cybersecurity, unit. Just the other side of the wire from where I work.
It's where the government hide the aliens in the UK.
Oh, well, it could be. I mean, there are rumours of, how Space Mountain might sort of, go underground a little bit, but I've got no evidence and I cannot confirm or deny any of that. But all I'd say is that the apprenticeship offer that's out there is now a very attractive one. And like, for example, a student would leave like school, go to university, do 3 years, leave with, not an inconsiderable amount of debt, and still probably struggle to get a job unless they had relevant work experience. And for me, relevant work experience is the most important deciding factor in getting your first job. So if that's it, then maybe in some sectors, for example, computing, you don't need to necessarily go to uni if you know you want to work in the sector. So, I mean, I've got kids who have, at the age of 18, they've got their like GSAC. Do you know what that is?
Not heard of that.
The GIAC Security Essentials qualification, which then basically allows them to go off and work in the cybersecurity industry, or they do that as part of their apprenticeship alongside some sort of degree. So I'd really be saying that if you know that you want to work in the sector, take a look at the apprenticeship route, because you're going to be the one in like 5 years' time who's line managing all those graduates that have come out of university.
So I'm just gonna jump in and double down on what you just said then. So we had strong ties at my last school with Renishaw, which obviously is a big employer in Stroud.
Oh yes.
And we used to get the Renishaw people to come in and speak to my A-level class, and I used to go there and do a visit. And for the 5 years I was there, we either had 1 or 2 students every year after A-level pick up an apprenticeship. And I remember one year going in with like my 4th or 5th class and like walking into the office, and there are 4 or 5 of my ex-students from the previous 4 years. Oh, how's it going, Tom? You've been here like 2 years now, 4 years, sir. And and it's still calling me sir at age like 22, 23.
Of course,
but they were like, absolutely. And I would get them to come back and talk. I think there's a generational thing with whether rightly or wrongly, with apprenticeships being seen as maybe the dumber vocational option. That is not the case. I could give you any one of my past students who went to Renishaw, and they would say, I'm doing my entire university degree. They pay for me to go to university. I go 1 day a week and do university. I can convert this into a master's at the end, and they'll pay for that as well. And when I come out in 3 years' time, I won't be in debt. I've had a paid job, and I have 3 years commercial experience, and I'll be in the same position as 20-year-old when I was looking for a job. But I would have been working in the sector I love for 3 years.
Yeah.
And wow.
Employable.
Very employable. So, I mean, that was my opinion, but I wanted to see what yours was. So, so what about students then looking to go for apprenticeships and stuff? Is there anything they should be doing or they could be doing then? This idea of, well, build up a portfolio of work, or that's an excellent project, keep that. Just, are there any tips you give them? Or is it just a case of passion and enthusiasm and get out there and apply?
Well, I mean, that's all really important, isn't it? But, if you came to me and you said, well, I'd like to come and work at your place. I mean, I'd want to know like why you'd want to come and work at my place, and also I'd probably want to know what you know about what my company is and like what we actually do here. And if you're so, for example, all right, I'd say it's definitely worth it. So, for example, if you're looking for a job in cybersecurity. I think it's pretty essential that you've like engaged in like some of the programs that are available, so that you've got an understanding of like what work in the sector looks like. Maybe you've done something like Cyber Centurion, which is an absolutely fantastic program that like my students have really benefited from. That like really gives them an opportunity to do something other than the sort of work that I get them doing in the classroom. We've also had students that have been interested in, systems engineering. So, stuff that's on the cusp between, computer science and like, physical stuff. And we used to run a scheme called Engineering in Education scheme. And they sort of get an opportunity to get the Raspberry Pis and actually work on a practical task. Like we had 1 year where they set up a system that detected and took photographs of objects on an aircraft runway and sort of sent it back to an Apache web server. And being engaged in STEM activities like that like really sort of sets you head and shoulders above the competition. I think that's slightly different to sort of building a portfolio, isn't it? Although, with things like Git, you can really, if you're putting stuff together, you've now got a mechanism for sort of publishing that and sharing that. So yeah, that would be entirely appropriate as well.
Yeah, the portfolio isn't necessarily just a folder of work. It's a portfolio of experiences, as well as, a portfolio of things that you've been interested in, that you've read about, that you've worked on, that you've collaborated with others on, stuff you've done in your spare time. And I think for any student that is listening to this now and thinking, I might fancy a job in the industry or an apprenticeship or both, then you should pause and rewind this video at this point, because what John said in the last 3 or 4 minutes is absolute gold for your application to those apprenticeships. Now, these apprenticeships, they can have hundreds and hundreds of applications. And so things that you can do to make yourself sort of stand out to that company, and things that companies really like. I just want to highlight the one thing that you said there, John. They really like to know why you want to work for them. So not just blanket CVs going out. The companies want to feel special. They want to feel like, oh, you really want to come and work for us. And I know that because of how you've written this little statement. So it's really important that you've got to flatter them, right? You've got to flatter these companies, because everyone's sending CVs out there. So you've got to tell these companies why you're the person for the job. And you do it by saying how you and your attributes and your portfolio fits with their ethos. So have a look at their websites. study them with a fine-tooth comb, see what they're working on, see what their company values are, see what their mission statements are, see what they've been doing over the last few years in the industry, and then write your statement that directly addresses those things and say how enthusiastic and passionate you are about helping them to achieve whatever it is they say is in their mission statement.
I'm smiling because I'm liking the fact this is all marrying up with previous people we've had on Unscripted, and we don't script these, so it's nice that it is marrying up. You've already said a lot of things that said Mark and Jack said, but I'm just thinking back to last week now with Karen. We were asking Karen about opportunities in computer science and inspiring girls in computing, and she was talking about, you know, grasping the mantle and taking different opportunities, getting involved in clubs and activities and trips, doing cyber first competitions. Because if you want to do that, have a go at that competition, have a go at this. And what we're saying is, yeah, you're competing there. If you're interested, there's lots of opportunities. Ask your teacher, do a bit of Googling. There's loads of stuff out there you can reach for. And it all makes you that little bit different, that little bit special, that little bit more rounded. Because as much time as we get with you in class, it is limited.
Yeah,
so,
and I was also going to say, Craig, before John sort of jumps back in again here, because I know how passionate he is about all this stuff. That you don't need your teacher. I know there's going to be a lot of students watching this thinking, yeah, but it would be great if I was taught by Craig and Dave. It would be great if I was taught by Karen. It would be great if I was taught by John. Oh, it absolutely would be. But you don't need us, and you don't need those teachers. Those opportunities are out there for you to grasp on your own. Get a group of your mates together, do a little bit of research, and set your own club up. Get doing something outside of the lessons that's not driven by your teacher. That is going to make you stand out.
Right. I got one more question. We're all three really good talkers. We're up to 41 minutes already. But I want to turn a question round, because you are, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, you are an exceptionally talented and passionate teacher, and CPD opportunities and everything that you do. So for the teachers watching out here, or trainee teachers, you know, what are the attributes of a successful, and I do want to hone this now, computer science teacher? So whereas before we just said what makes a good student, you know, what are the attributes of a successful computer science teacher? We have a subject which didn't exist before 2012. A lot of converted teachers into the subject. So, you know, and you've run a lot of CPD for your CAS event. So any advice there? And where can they go for help and advice? I know I could just say it, but this is your opportunity to kind of sell the things that are out there, because so many people still don't know what's available.
Right. So I think the first thing for me is it's so much of this subject is about your subject knowledge. Sure. So, you know, what's your subject knowledge like? Take a good hard look at yourself. You know, what are the bits of the computing curriculum that you're not quite so happy with? You know, whether it's the maths, whether it's the coding, whether it's the, you know, nuts and bolts, whether it's networking. You can go on and you can go onto the Teach Computing site, and like every successful computer science teacher should have an account on the Teach Computing site, and they should be looking at what they can do next. So if you're thinking, well, I've only been teaching this a little while, or I'm converting from this subject, or, you know, you want to improve your subject knowledge, you should definitely be signed up for the Computer Science Accelerator program. And that is being delivered, you know, countrywide by some really, really superb people. You know, that's, oh, wonderful. That's exactly it. You need to get yourself on. You need to get yourself an account. You need to sign yourself up for some courses. Perhaps you could use the diagnostic tool, because there's a diagnostic tool that you can use to identify your strengths and weaknesses, and then do some of the CPD. The Teach Computing CPD is brilliant. You know, I deliver it. I love delivering it. It's really good. It's brought a lot of people on. So that's the first thing. Sort out your subject knowledge. Yeah. Other things that you need to do just to be a good, you know, reflective practitioner. You know, you need to be talking to other people. You need to be engaging with your local CAS community. Hopefully you've got a CAS community. If you haven't got a CAS community, well, why don't you set one up and, like, you know, get a few people round either on a Zoom or, you know, round to your computer room after school if you're allowed. And
just going to show people that again. Sorry, right there. Training and support, computing hubs. That's what we were talking about, isn't it?
Reach out to your local computing hub. Very important. You know, reach out to the people around you in your community. The power of people helping each other and bouncing ideas off each other is enormous. I mean, I know down in Gloucestershire, you know, I've worked in your part of the world. There's a really great group of people down there, and you know, you've got people who you ask them something and they'll like help you. We all need a little bit of help. And you know, beyond that, I think we all need a little bit of determination, because, you know, originally, don't forget, chaps, I'm a maths teacher, and you know, I've sort of converted over to, you know, teaching multiple subjects. It's not always easy, but it is important that we do it. You know, it's important for the kids. It's important that they're taught well. It's important that you know the subject and that you're interested in it, and you know you're up to date with you know all the stuff that's going on, so that when you come into class, you can sort of, you know, have that sort of you know, extra chit chat. You know, like we've been chatting about, you know, Facebook algorithms and like how do they work, and you know all the stuff in the press at the moment about, you know, Facebook not publicly acknowledging the harm that its platforms potentially cause. You know, obviously that's all been sort of going off, hasn't it? So well, let's discuss it. What do you think? You know, and having that eye on you know, what's new, and just keeping yourself up to date. It is difficult, but you know, you've got to try and do it.
Computer science teachers are often in very small departments in school, and in many schools you'll be in a department of 1 or a department of 2. It's not like teaching science or English or PE where there are, you know, lots of you, and so therefore it can feel quite isolating sometimes. It can feel like you're on your own, that there's nowhere to go for help. But I would say definitely look at Teach Computing and reach out to your local hubs, of course, but just pick up the phone to the schools in your area. There will be another secondary school probably within 20 miles of you, probably, you know, a couple of schools within 20 miles of you. Pick up the phone and just say, you know, could I speak to your head of computer science, please, or your curriculum lead for computer science? Introduce yourself, go to the school, meet them, have a coffee, and then start sharing what you're doing, what they're doing, and network and build up ideas. And to be honest, that is kind of what Craig and I do. I mean, as we've said on loads of episodes, we taught at completely different schools for over 20 years. There's no good reason for us really to be collaborating, but it was about the fact that I knew Craig was passionate about the subject and wanted to move forward. He knew I was passionate about the subject and wanted to move forward. And I thought, well, he's a good person to help me reflect on my lessons. And he thought Dave's a good person to help me reflect on my lessons. And we got together and said, hang on a minute. You're spending all your time making these resources and I'm spending all my time making these resources. Why don't we actually divide and conquer? You make these, I'll make those. And if I don't think yours are good enough, I'll tell you, we'll talk about it, we'll change it. And then we can teach the same thing. And a problem shared is a problem halved. And I know, John, you're part of our sort of Craig and Dave community in that respect as well. And we bounce ideas.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? The most important thing, you know, is community, and you know, knowing who's nearby and knowing who's doing a good job with, you know, one thing or another. And you know, if you want to reach out, then you know, reaching out. It's really, really important that we do that, and that's all part of being a reflective practitioner. And in my eyes, you know, being a reflective practitioner is the best thing you can do in those sort of afternoons after you've been teaching all day.
I've got a final thing to say, I think, which is I used to feel really tired, really tired. Teaching's tiring, right? So I went to the doctor once and I said, oh, I'm just feeling really tired all of the time. And the doctor said, how much exercise you do? I said, exercise? I'm too tired for exercise. He said, I'll tell you what will cure your tiredness. Exercise. I was like, right, okay. And I'm reflecting that back to teaching, because a lot of teachers will say, oh, I'm too busy, I'm too tired, I don't have the time to kind of go and visit other teachers and share resources. Well, actually, if you do that, you will feel more refreshed in the profession. You will feel far better about what you're doing than you do now on your own.
I think in this sort of post-pandemic world, and even this sort of pandemic, you know, what we've just been through, yeah, everyone's just so much better at, you know, getting on a Zoom or getting on a Teams call. You know, you don't, if your local CAS community is running an online meeting, just turn up and like lurk. You don't necessarily have to start contributing from the get-go, do you? Just turn up and have a little look at what people are talking about, and then they might start talking about something. You might go, well, hold on a minute. Have you thought about this? And you know, it's easier than ever for us to like build networks and build communities. The Facebook groups, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't contribute to the Facebook groups as much as I should, because, you know, I do like, you know, having a bit of time away from the technology as well as being immersed in it. And, you know, going back to what you were saying about exercise, I think one of the most important things like teachers can actually do is every now and again actually go out for a walk or go out for a run and try and keep a clear head. Because,
unplug.
You know, by doing that, you know, you're going to go into school and your lessons are going to be better and you're going to teach them a lot better. But yeah, practice, isn't it? You know, how do you learn to program? Well, you have to practice it, don't you? And the more you practice, the better you get.
Brilliant. Well, look, I mean, you're one of these people that we could talk to, and before we know it, we've got a 3-hour unscripted. We're at 52 minutes, so I am going to wrap it up there. But I think if you're all right, we might like to get you back on some future episodes. You're a fascinating guy to chat to. So many ideas. We've only touched the surface on some of the things we know that you know, you're good at talking about. But I think it's been a brilliant episode. Hopefully, people have found it useful. And yeah, well, we'll sign it off there and see everyone next week.
Always a pleasure, chaps.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.